Welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm your host, Winnie.
And I'm Matt.
And today we are continuing day 2 of comics or manga, something for every taste. Speaking of which, have you ever drawn any comics when you were younger?
I think I tried. We had some school assignments, I remember,
Me
where
too.
they asked us to write comics just so I think we could practice
Storytelling.
Storytelling, yes. And my comics were not very good and did not make sense. My storytelling didn't work.
It jumped timelines.
Yes.
Well, yeah, for me, I actually did a lot of drawing growing up, and I didn't realize my art style was manga style because I learned from my friends who read manga.
Oh, okay.
So that was kind of my introduction to manga. I was drawing one day and I realized I saw a manga and I was like, oh, they kind of look similar. Yeah, so even though I didn't read manga, I actually ended up learning the art style quite quickly.
Okay. Well, yeah, even though I didn't read manga, I did watch some anime. So anime is basically just animated or drawn, like moving pictures of manga. So TV shows and movies of manga. And I used to watch Dragon Ball when I was a kid. So I was familiar with Dragon Ball, which comes from a manga.
Right.
So it's a very famous manga, but it has been made into a TV show, which I really enjoy.
Well, so actually your hair, we just need to make it 100 times bigger and it's kind of similar.
Just a bit bigger, yes.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get today's article started.
Comics and manga also tell different kinds of stories. Western comics often focus on action, with superheroes or crime fighting at the center, particularly in the US. The range of topics explored by manga, on the other hand, is almost endless. There are manga about sports, cooking, romance, fantasy, and even everyday life. Additionally, it's common for a comic book character's story to be rebooted several times. Over the years, different writers and artists take over, and each brings their own vision to the character. Events that take place in one issue might be ignored or rewritten in another. This makes it difficult to follow a single, consistent storyline.
All right, let's continue day 2 of comics or manga, something for every taste.
Comics and manga also tell different kinds of stories. Western comics often focus on action with superheroes or crime fighting at the center, particularly in the US.
Yes, usually it's always New York City.
Well, it's either New York City or a city that's meant to look like New York City but has a different name.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Makes you kind of scared of the city. Okay, continuing on with the article. The range of topics explored by manga, on the other hand, is almost endless. There are manga about sports, cooking, romance, fantasy, and even everyday life. Okay, we have one of these topics, one of these genres, romance. And romance is something relating to love or affection. So usually these love stories. For example, you could say Amelia enjoys reading books that are full of romance and adventure. I'm a very big fan of a genre called romantasy, which is romance mixed with fantasy.
Interesting. Okay, well, fantasy is another genre, and fantasy involves magic or magical creatures and magical places, different worlds than we live in. And you might think of some famous fantasies that involve things like wizards and witches and magic. So Harry Potter,
Lord of the
Rings and The Hobbit, those are fantasy. They were originally fantasy books and are now fantasy movies. So an example sentence, Harry Potter is one of the most famous fantasy books in the world.
Yeah, and I think they're very successful because they kind of help you leave this world and imagine something crazier.
So I find it interesting that there are genres of manga that talk about other things, because I think the anime from the manga that we were introduced to in Canada was mostly similar to comics, where it was action and fighting and things like that. But it wasn't until I came to Taiwan that I found out about the like sports manga involving volleyball and soccer teams. And I thought that was very interesting. Something I didn't know about.
Yeah, well, let's go to Hanny.Hello，
大家好，我是 Hanny。今天要继续探讨日本漫画跟西方漫画的差异。课文提到，这两种漫画讲述了不同类型的故事。那西方漫画通常专注于动作，以超级英雄或者是打击犯罪为中心，尤其是在美国。而日本漫画的主题范围几乎是无穷无尽，像是在运动啊、烹饪啊、爱情、奇幻等等。好，来看单字 romance。romance 是名词，表示恋爱、爱情故事或是浪漫。Fantasy 则表示奇幻作品，可能是文学、电影等等，还可以表达幻想。Winnie 老师提到他喜欢的作品类型是 romantasy， 也就是由 romance 跟 fantasy 结合而来的，也就是指浪漫奇幻。顺便补充一下 genre 这个字 G-E-N-R-E， 它可以指类型、题材，常常用来指音乐、文学、电影、绘画等等艺术作品的类型。Matt 老师刚刚还有提到 anime 则是指日式动画。好，这边还有一个重点是 with 加受词加受词补语，这个句型是用来表示附带状况或是说明原因。那受词补语你可以用分词、形容词或介系词片语。我们用分词当受词补语的话，受词跟补语的关系是主动，就用现在分词 VING， 被动就用过去分词 PP。这边造两个例句 ：Veronica walked in with a book in her hand。Veronica 走进来，手里拿着一本书。这时候受词补语我们就是用介系词片语 in her hand。With little money left, he turned to his parents for help. 由于身上的钱所剩无几，他向父母寻求协助。这时候受词补语我们就用到了过去分词 left。好，接着回到课文中。
All right, thank you, Hanny.
Okay, getting back to this article.Additionally, it's common for a comic book character's story to be rebooted several times. Over the years, different writers and artists take over, and each brings their own vision to the character.
Usually you'll see different versions, and some people have their own favorite.
That's why there's different Spider-Men out there. There's many different versions of Spider-Man. There's not just one Spider-Man. There's even different names for the person who wears the Spider-Man suit.
Right, exactly. So continuing on with the article, events that take place in one issue might be ignored or rewritten in another. This makes it difficult to follow a single consistent storyline. So that's why the universe is always expanding, and those true comic book fans, they have every issue, they know exactly what happens in every timeline. And of course we have this word issue, in this case it's a noun, and it means an edition or printing of a magazine. So for example, you could say the July issue of the fashion magazine sold out quickly. That means that particular one that came out in July.
And not just magazines, but also comics. Comics come in issues because usually they come out monthly or at a regular time period.
Right.
So it's difficult to keep up with their timelines because they're not consistent. So be consistent means to stay the same over time or to maintain the same habits or practices over time. So if these comic books are not consistent, it's because they change the timelines, change the artists, change the characters or the names of the characters that you were familiar with, and it's just hard to keep up with. So an example sentence, you have to be consistent with your practice to improve.
Right, that's something that you have to keep on doing. All right, well, let's go see what Hanny has to say.
课文接着提到，西方漫画角色的故事经常被重启好几次，那多年来就有不同的作者还有艺术家来接手，而且呢，在这一期漫画里面发生的事，可能在另一期当中就被忽略，或者是有重写，造成读者难以跟随这种单一连贯的故事线。好，来看单字 issue 它表示报刊的期或者是号，第几期第几号这样子。那么 consistent 它是形容连贯的、一致的。这边还有一个重点是 it 形容词 to 加原形动词，可以表达做某事是怎么样的。句型当中的 it 是虚主词，用来代替不定词片语 to be。那其中的 be 动词，你还可以根据状况、根据情况来换成不同时态。to be 的前面可以加 for somebody or something 来指出对象。例如 It is important for everyone to follow traffic rules. 每个人都遵守交通规则是很重要的。介绍课文中。
Okay, thanks, Hanny. So today we've talked more about the differences between mangas and comics and what makes each of them unique, but we still have more to learn about these differences, and I still haven't decided which one I like best, so we'll have to find out after the break.
In contrast, a manga usually has only one creator or team that writes and illustrates the series from start to finish. This benefits the story, as the book's events don't come into conflict with one another. Importantly, manga stories usually have a clear end, even if a given story takes dozens of volumes to conclude. Manga and comics are clearly distinct in many ways beyond their visual appearance, but together, they show the ways stories can be told, remembered, and loved by their fans around the world.
And we are back to talk more about manga and comics, so let's get into it.
All right. In contrast, a manga usually has only one creator or team that writes and illustrates the series from start to finish. So that's a pretty big distinction or big difference from comics, as we said before the break. Comics, you could have a lot of different versions. You could have a lot of different illustrators or people who are drawing the different comics. And to illustrate something is our verb, and it means to provide an image. In this case, we are talking about drawing. We're drawing the manga, we're drawing the comics. So for example, the children's book was beautifully illustrated.
Okay, back to the article. This benefits the story, as the book's events don't come into conflict with one another. Importantly, manga stories usually have a clear end, even if a given story takes dozens of volumes to conclude.
Oh, so this is where, for me, in the pros and cons list, it's kind of tipping in the favor of manga, because I hate it when, especially like shows or movies, there's like 10,000 episodes and 300 movies that I gotta watch. I know that there's an ending, so that's gonna be a pro for me.
Especially, yeah, I know definitely with a lot of TV shows these days, it feels better to watch a TV show where you know that whoever made it had an idea for a clear start and end of the series, so it doesn't just continue to go on. And I guess that would be the same with reading a manga. If the artist, when they began, had an idea for how this story would end, then they're not going off on endless side stories and endless quests to do other things, but just getting to the point.
Right, exactly. All right, let's go to Hanny.
相比之下，日本漫画通常只有一位创作者或团队从头到尾编写绘制整个系列，这有利于故事发展，因为书里面的事件就不会相互冲突。重要的是，它通常会有明确的结局。好，单字 illustrate 是动词，表示给什么什么画插图或者是用图来说明。相关词性 illustrator 则表示插画家。Winnie 老师觉得故事有明确的结局，哇，这是一大优点。这时候老师用到 pros and cons 来表达赞成及反对的理由、正反意见或者是利弊、优缺点。其中的 pro 表示优点或赞成的论点，那么 con 则表示缺点或反对的论点。那我们继续回到课文中。
All right, thank you, Hanny. Continuing on with the article, manga and comics are clearly distinct in many ways beyond their visual appearance. But together, they show the ways stories can be told, remembered, and loved by their fans around the world. I remember when I was directing my first short film, my immediate thought was to just, do a lot of storyboarding. And I realized that my younger days when I was writing comics actually really helped me with storyboarding because I kind of knew how to tell a story that way.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. So you're a bit of a comic artist yourself, or maybe a manga artist.
Oh, yeah, maybe I can make a fusion.
That's right. All right, now let's go to Hanny.
看了这2天的课文，我们可以了解到日本漫画和西方漫画在许多方面都明显不同。不过有个共通点，就是他们都受到世界各地的书迷喜爱。Winnie 老师聊到他以前画漫画的经验对于后来他在指导短片制作分镜表的时候很有帮助。老师说的 storyboard 就是指故事板或是分镜表，也就是把脚本绘制成一张一张这种镜头草图，用来谈论剧情或者是画面。老师也开玩笑说，他以后也许可以结合日本漫画跟西方漫画。这时候用到 fusion 这个字 ，F-U-S-I-O-N，fusion 可以表达融合、结合、混合或者是合成体。介华课文中。
All right, thanks, Hanny. Today we have a "What do you think?" question. So I'm going to ask you, Winnie, what do you think? What aspects of a story make it interesting to you? Themes, characters, emotions, or something else?
I would say it's a mixture of all of them, but I personally am drawn to characters. Either characters that I really relate to, and if I don't, they're characters that are so different from me, so far away from me, that it's interesting to see their point of view, because especially if they're written in first person, then I see, oh, the thought process of someone I don't agree with. That's a very refreshing experience. And that's something that's interesting with books, movies, manga, comics. What about you?
I also think it's a combination of all things.
Right.
And I guess I would say the most attractive or most interesting thing has to be characters.
Yeah.
Because if the characters aren't good, then whatever, if it's a book or movie or TV show, then it's not going to be worth watching. If you can't feel interested in what the characters are doing, then what's the point of watching this TV show or reading this book?
That's true. If the characters are too unpleasant, you're not going to really want to finish it.
Well, they can be unpleasant, but they just have to be interesting. For me, I don't have to like the character. I don't have to, want to be friends with them.
Yeah.
But they have to be interesting enough, have an interesting enough, emotions inside them. So emotions are also important because those characters' emotions have to be real and believable.
Right.
And have to be, most importantly, interesting.
Right, exactly. Well, that is all we have for today. Hopefully you learned a thing or two about comics or mangas, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.
Comics and manga also tell different kinds of stories. Western comics often focus on action, with superheroes or crime fighting at the center, particularly in the US. The range of topics explored by manga, on the other hand, is almost endless. There are manga about sports, cooking, romance, fantasy, and even everyday life. Additionally, it's common for a comic book character's story to be rebooted several times. Over the years, different writers and artists take over, and each brings their own vision to the character. Events that take place in one issue might be ignored or rewritten in another. This makes it difficult to follow a single consistent storyline. In contrast, a manga usually has only one creator or team that writes and illustrates the series from start to finish. This benefits the story, as the book's events don't come into conflict with one another. Importantly, manga stories usually have a clear end, even if a given story takes dozens of volumes to conclude. Manga and comics are clearly distinct in many ways beyond their visual appearance, but together, they show the ways stories can be told, remembered, and loved by their fans around the world.
最后，我们来复习今天课文里面的单字文法。单字的部分有 romance 名词，表示恋爱、爱情故事或是浪漫 Fantasy 名词表示奇幻作品，可能是文学或电影，还可以表达幻想。Issue 名词表示报刊的期或是号。Consistent 它是形容连贯的、一致的。Illustrate 动词表示给什么画插图或是用途说明。文法的部分，第一个学到 with 加受词加受词补语，这个句型用来表示附带状况或说明原因。那受词补语你可以用分词、形容词或介系词片语。第二个学到 it's 形容词加 to v 表示做什么是怎么样的。to v 前面可以加上 for somebody or something 来指出对象。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学们别走开，马上回来哦。
Aside from high-quality performance venues, the National Taichung Theater also has a lot more to offer. There are areas worth exploring on the various floors of the building. Let's see what else they have in store. On the 6th floor of the National Taichung Theater is the Sky Garden. The Sky Garden's large grass lawn and layer of soil keep the top floor at a comfortable temperature. The curved walls of the building stick up through the top floor, so the floor of the Sky Garden is not perfectly flat. A restaurant on the 6th floor offers light meals. It has floor-to-ceiling windows, giving visitors a clear view of Summer Green Park. The 5th floor has a food area, as well as a life design and art store. There is also a special exhibition hall named the Tutu Gallery, designed like a ballerina's tutu dress. So even if you're not in the mood to watch one of the brilliant performances at the theater, there is still plenty to do and see at the National Taichung Theater. It truly is a wonderful place to visit with your family and friends.